everybody. Welcome back to our series of interviews. We are doing interviews in the final year of our Co-Creating Sustainable Food Supply Chains project. We did interviews in the first year where we sort of asked everybody their expectations, their hopes for the project, how the project's designed, who they're working with. And now, as we're nearing the end of the 3-year project, we're talking again to each of the hubs. And today, Pia, as the coordinator of the project, questions about how it went, what are some things we learned, what are some challenges, and what are some next steps. So I'd like to introduce Pia Laborgne of KIT. We can start by talking just a little bit about the background on the overall project, sort of how was it designed, who was it involved, and specifically from your perspective as the coordinator sort of helped design this, just to give us a brief background on, what the project is about.
Yes, hello and thank you, Ashley. Co-SFC coordinates transdisciplinary research on sustainable food supply across 5 hubs and with 6 teams in Thailand, Turkey, Taiwan, Sweden, Germany, and the US, so 3 continents. And the project is a project within the framework of the Belmont Forum project. Program Sustainable Systems of Consumption and Production, SSCP. It's designed as a transdisciplinary and transformative project, which means we are not only observing and analyzing, but we actively aim to generate real-world impact. And then of course, to analyze the results, to amplify what we learned. The overall aim is to contribute to the transformation of food supply chains with a particular focus on cooperation, cooperative structures, and the ecosystem that support them.
That's wonderful. Yeah, one thing I've been super interested in throughout the entire project is this aim to make change in the real world, and then the cooperation component. I think those are really, there are unique aspects of this project, and it's been a really joyful to watch, and it's very interesting to watch how it's all been playing out. So from the last interview, I interviewed you at the beginning of the project as the coordinator of the hubs. We have various interviews of each of the hubs where they're talking about their specific case. But in this interview, I'm interested in your overall view as the coordinator. And so at this initial interview, you said, you're talking about your expectations for the project, and you said, quote, "One main advantage of this project is that we have a really good opportunity to learn from each other. So what we want to do is set up a process with each of us where we have different specialties, different expertise, and we can share with the others what we need to reflect together on what happens in the hubs to transfer our learnings. And we have a really good chance to realize this." And so I think that vision at the beginning to just sort of learn from one another and to mesh together these various experts and practice partners in various parts of the world. So how does that compare with how the project actually worked, in your opinion?
Mm. I think it worked out, and yes, I think it's really a key strength of the project. We created a strong community of practice. We had regular exchange and really also opportunities for joint reflection. And I think a really good openness developed in the team.
Mhm.
We had these monthly meetings, which played an important role because we had really regular exchange. Often it was even 2 meetings in one month,
Mhm.
where we shared what was happening in the different hubs and reflected on it together. Then we created research diaries that support process reflection also, or yeah, to see, to capture the different steps and experiences. We had, yeah, these reflection workshops. We had really inspiring conversations also, which made me understand the persons and the cultural contexts much better. Um, yes, I think one really important thing was or which made a big difference was the in-person meetings. So we had different also visits in our context. We met at conferences in different places and also did joint visits to practice partners.
Mhm.
But which was really important to see concretely what was done there, to really, really understand. If not, it was a bit theoretical, even if we showed nice pictures and
Mhm.
told each other.
Mhm.
So I think these moments really strengthened the collaboration and allowed for deeper and more meaningful exchange also.
Mhm.
And I think we really built a very open and trustful relationship in the
Mhm.
consortium.
Yep.
Like this, it makes it much easier to learn from each other and yeah, to create such a learning process.
Yeah, and as an observer and somebody who's attended some of these conferences and events where we've exchanged ideas, it's been so nice. I think it's everybody on the team has really built some nice rapport, some nice trust, and I think ideally this is the goal of these kinds of projects where you have teams of researchers who are share an interest in sustainable consumption and production and they start to work together as colleagues. And then, ideally they can work together in the future and know of each other's work and think of future projects. So I think it was very successful as well as an outside observer. You also said at the beginning of the project, one thing you were a little bit nervous about is it's a complex project. It's a big project. We're in very different contexts. We have very different languages, including different disciplinary languages, which is an important point. We have different levels of experience with transdisciplinarity, different focus points. So it's a really complex and will be a challenge to bring this all together. But I think you said it's a nice challenge also. So I wonder how you think, what were some of the challenges? Were some of these complexities a reality as a part of the project?
Yes, it was complex and sometimes it's challenging because, I mean, already different disciplines bring different vocabulary, different concepts, and then we had the language, and sometimes you realized that something was not, yeah, understood right, or we really had to yeah, be patient or make sure that we understood each other.
Hmm.
Then we had different cultural contexts. We had also different circumstances for our project, so
Hmm.
different requests from the funding agency, or really like the contextual circumstances were very different, and we had to learn to understand this also.
Hmm.
And we also worked on different aspects of the chain, of the food supply chain. So it was not like the completely parallel what we did.
Hmm.
So, and we had very different data. So it was
Hmm.
not, so the comparison, it's really, it's complex. It's not always possible. It's more than the steps, the process, we can compare. But for the data, it's more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And I wonder whether designing a future project, we might do something maybe more qualitative in nature because it was sort of
Mm.
hard, I noticed, with various parts of the assessment, the quantitative assessments we were trying to do throughout the project were just the contexts were so different. In Taiwan, it's a very small team, and the transformation is kind of idiosyncratic to Taiwan, whereas in Sweden it would be a different kind of transformation as well. So it was somewhat hard to compare, but fine to compare qualitatively, through
Mm.
story, it seems like to me.
Yeah. And yeah. And from previous projects, I had the experience that you really have to clarify several times the goals, the key concepts. And still we had from time to time a bit of we realized there was a misunderstanding
Yeah.
because people have different yeah, concepts, different
Totally.
experience or no experience with transdisciplinary work. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's if you hear it in theory what transdisciplinary means, it does not mean you really know what it means in practice. So
Mm.
it's a learning process, and I think
Yes.
we're a step further.
Yep,
Mm.
definitely. So, having done this project now that we're nearing the end of the 3-year project and some of the teams have already concluded, what are you most pleased with or surprised about that happened during this process?
I'm surprised and very pleased that really this group of people spread over 3 continents came to form such a nice community. It's
Hmm.
really when we met, it feels like it felt like we knew each other since years, very
Hmm.
fast. I think we found a really nice common ground, and then had this really good conversations, which went also deep conversations, which really helped to understand. And I think it's not self-evident. It could be different. It really like formed very, very nicely. And it's a good basis for cooperation, also for further cooperation. And yeah, I'm also impressed how, yeah, to meet all these very engaged people, also from our practice partners. There are so many really good initiatives, really engagement, and we can learn. For example, in Thailand, this big cooperative, I found a lot we can learn here from them, what they did and what they realized. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was really impressive. And we met like very different people from the supply chain, from farmers, food cooperatives, restaurants, and administration policy. And everywhere in the world there are engaged people, and I think it's really good to see this.
Yeah.
And yes, we can learn a lot and get inspiration, even if the circumstances are
Yes,
different.
yes, and I would echo that. I think my experience also was very inspiring to see these different examples from around the world. One thing I will say, my part of my hypothesis is that, food systems are, while they are particular, they're also somewhat universal. And so you
Mm.
face very similar challenges of, industrial, corporate, consolidated food supply chain in all of these places, and we're,
Yeah.
sort of sharing tips and tricks across the world of
Mm.
different ways in which we navigate this. I remember at the beginning of the project, we had a visit to a small German town, or yeah, I think it was maybe a
Mhm.
suburb, but they had a community oven. And I loved this
Yeah.
idea of the community oven. What a cool, and this is an old technology, an
Mm.
old cultural artifact, but little sort of visits and little points of inspiration when we visit each other and get ideas about how things work. So that's been inspiring to me as well.
Yeah.
So thinking about next steps, either for your research or for food system transformation more broadly, what do you see as the possible next steps for continuing this work?
Yeah, so very concretely here in Karlsruhe, you mentioned the big or these nice small examples, initiatives like this cooperative community projects. I think we can learn from this, and we want to realize this
Hmm.
here in our context. I think also we can go deeper on these examples, and then there are very concrete steps here in Karlsruhe regarding our work on building the innovation ecosystem, the network of stakeholders of the regional food system, really to institutionalize also the started cooperation. So, for example, we had food summits. We want to go towards a food council
Hmm.
and learn from other contexts how they did or do it. Then internationally, I think concrete aspects. I would like to dive deeper, like good practices for organizing circular food systems. I think this aspect of circularity is
Hmm.
something which comes up and which is really important. Then, yeah, increasing the resilience of food supply also by this local community building, justice aspects. Also, we had both in the projects. I think there's further research needed, and it's really, really important aspect. Yes, and I said, I think, as you said, food is really it's a topic people can relate to all over the world. So I think for going towards sustainability and also like forming a coalition of engaged people, that's really, really a good topic where we have many dimensions of sustainability here and many starting points people
Hmm.
can also well relate to. And I think it's important. We are working currently on this deep sustainability. I think to go get really a sense of deep sustainability of what lays below the surface of infrastructure to a more fundamental understanding. I think it's also something we should go deeper and understand this also in different cultural contexts and learn from other cultural contexts where I think there's a better understanding of this than in our context.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I hope that our team in different iterations can find ways to work together in the future after this project has ended. Everybody, I think, is working toward very similar goals in their context and very similar research interests and also an interest in making real world change. So I think it's been a wonderful project to be a part of, and thank you so much for coordinating it and pulling it all together. I know it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was great to work together, and I hope we go on.